Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another week of online Sunday school. I hope that y'all all had a great week last week. I know I did, so I hope you did too. Today we're going to continue to talk about who? Joseph. We're going to keep talking about Joseph. We talked about Joseph last week, and what did we talk about? Do you remember with Joseph? We talked about how he got that beautiful coat from his dad, Jacob, and his brothers were really jealous and they did not handle their feelings well, and they made plans to get rid of Joseph. They sent him away with some people to Egypt, and they told their dad that Joseph was dead. So we talked about how we express our feelings and emotions, and a lot about everybody's feelings in that story. So we're gonna keep talking about Joseph this week. We have Joseph went to Egypt, like we talked about in our last story, and now we're gonna talk a little bit about what he did when he was there. So I don't remember if we talked about this too much last week, but Joseph was known for having a lot of dreams. He had dreams when he was at home with his family. He dreamed about there being a bunch of stars and all the stars were bowing down to him. And he also dreamed about a bunch of sheaves of wheat, like big stacks of wheat, and those were all bowing down to him. And then this week, he also had some dreams, and we're going to talk about those. They're pretty cool. So here's our Bible storybook. You can see Joseph right there. He's gotten a lot older. He went to Egypt when he was a teenager, and it looks like he's a lot older. He has a beard and everything. And then he's talking to these two men. So let's see what happens. Joseph in Egypt is the name of our lesson. It's from Genesis 39, verses 1 through 40, and then also 23. Joseph traveled with the traders to Egypt. Joseph worked for a while for a man named Potiphar before he threw Joseph in jail. While Joseph was in jail, he began to tell the other prisoners what their dreams meant. There's those dreams we talked about. One man was Pharaoh's cupbearer. He brought Pharaoh drinks when Pharaoh was thirsty. The other man was Pharaoh's baker. He baked Pharaoh things to eat. They both had strange dreams. Joseph said, "Tell me your dreams, and God will help me understand them." The cupbearer began, "I dreamed that I made juice from grapes and gave it to Pharaoh. He drank the juice. What does it mean?" "Pharaoh will forgive you," said Joseph. The baker told Joseph his dream. "I baked bread for Pharaoh. Birds came and ate all the bread before I could give it to him. What does it mean?" "It means that Pharaoh will not forgive you," explained Joseph. And Joseph was right. A few days later, the dreams came true. I don't know about you, but that's a really wild story to me. I've never had a dream that came true, I don't think, but I think this was one of Joseph's gifts that God gave him, the ability to be able to hear dreams and interpret them in order to help other people. It's pretty cool. And in this case, Joseph realized that he could help the baker and the cupbearer by interpreting their dreams, and then it turned out that the dreams came true. So he was using his gift that God gave him. One thing about Joseph's story that's really good for me to remember and for us to remember is that Joseph seemed to know that God was always with him. Even when, like last week's story, his brothers were so jealous and mad at him, and they took away his coat and they sent him to Egypt, and they told their dad that Joseph was dead. Joseph got to Egypt, and we learned this week that he got thrown in jail when he was in Egypt. That couldn't have been very much fun. No one really wants to end up in jail, I don't think. But Joseph knew that God was with him all this time, and so he just continued to use the gifts that God gave him to help others. So that's a really good lesson for us to remember, is that no matter what happens to us, a lot of bad stuff happened to Joseph, didn't it? And so we know that no matter what happens to us, good or bad, God is always with us too. God will never leave us. And in any circumstance, we always have the opportunity to use the gifts God gave us to help others and to glorify God, which is really great. So our craft for today is going to be a lot of fun, I think. We're going to make watercolor dreams. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what that means. We're paint our dreams. So for this craft, you will need, I have a little placemat kind of thing that I'm going to use for my watercolor. And you will need some watercolors. And if you don't have any watercolors and you have like finger paints instead, if whoever takes care of you says it's okay, you can use those. And if you don't have any paints at all, or you can't use them right now, then you can just use markers or crayons. That will also work just fine. So I have watercolor. I'm gonna use watercolor, and I have a cup of water. Very important for watercolor because you got to rinse off your paintbrush. And I have some napkins, paper towels to blot up my wet paintbrush, and of course I have a paintbrush. And I have a piece of paper that I forgot to get, and I'm gonna go get it right now. Hang on there. And have my piece of paper, so we're ready to get started. Okay, so for watercolor, you have to dip your paintbrush in the water to get it wet, and then you dip your wet paintbrush in the paint. And remember, you only want to do one color at a time, and then when you want to switch colors, you have to dip it in your water and clean it all off so you don't get all the colors all muddy, make them look like brown, gross color. You don't want to do that. So you have to swap out your colors, be sure to rinse out your paintbrush each time. Okay, so let's get started with our painting. So our project for today, our craft, is about painting our dreams. And you may have a very specific dream that you would like to paint. I don't really have anything in particular, but you can also just kind of paint a dream that you remember, or even like a feeling that you have sometimes, or your emotions, however you would interpret some emotions. Like you may want to paint your interpretation of being happy, or your interpretation of being sad or upset or angry, like all those emotions we talked about last week. I don't know. This is your opportunity to just be creative and take a minute to paint something expressive for yourself. And while we're painting, maybe if you have some music you like to listen to, or if you want to think about our story from the Bible story we read today, if you want to just think about that while you paint, you can do that as well. Or you can just sit in silence and enjoy your painting. So I'm going to keep painting my painting, and you keep working on your art, and then we'll get back together in a little while and show off what we made, okay? Okay, I'm finished with my masterpiece. Are you finished with your masterpieces? On the count of 3, let's hold them up and show each other. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Woo! Love me some art. So mine is just really abstract, which means it doesn't really represent anything. I just kind of picked some of my favorite colors and made a pattern that I liked on the paper. What does yours look like? Did you make something that you had in a dream? Did you try to make something from one of your dreams, or did you just paint or color on the paper? That's the nice thing about art, is you can make whatever you want, and it can tell whatever story you want it to have, because it's your art. You can make it what you want it to be. I really hope you enjoyed painting together. I did. I really like to paint. I think it's a fun way to express our creativity, don't you think? I hope you had fun doing this and thinking about Joseph's dreams while we painted. Okay, so I have my painting right here. Kind of a background as we say our prayer together, and you can get your art and hold it up or have it next to you while we read our prayer together. Dear God, help me make the best of every situation. Amen. So as we go into this upcoming week, what are some ways that we can be like Joseph and make the best of every situation and trust that God is with us all the time? What are some ways we can do that? If we are like Joseph, if there's any point in the week where we're having kind of a hard time or we're stressed, we can remember that Joseph had a lot of hard stuff happen in his life, and he made the best of it, and he remembered that God gave him gifts he could use to help others. So that's something we can remember as we go into this week. If we have some hard times, we know we can get through it because God is with us, and there will be opportunities for us to use the gifts God gave us to help other people. Can we remember that? I think that y'all can. You're really smart. All right, I really enjoyed our lesson today. I hope y'all did too. I love reading about the story of Joseph. He has a lot to teach us in all those stories, right? Or God has a lot to teach us in all Joseph's stories. Yeah. And we had fun making cool art. Always fun to be able to paint. So yeah, thank you so much for, paper almost blew it. Thank you so much for watching Online Sunday School and hanging out for a little bit. Online worship will be on later, so be sure to check that out. And I'll see you next week for some more Online Sunday School. All right, bye guys.